right. Well, welcome everyone to Prepper Chicks After Dark. A longtime favorite author of mine is on the show itself tonight, and he has a sick and twisted mind that we need to delve into on some of these cards. But before we get there, back with us tonight, the one and only creator of the game itself, JD. Welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Laurie. Always a pleasure. It's great to be here.
Nice to have you, as always. And also the tried, the true, the one and only Alika. Welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Lars. Good to be here as well. I represent www.shtfready.com, a prepping survivalist website that we share ideas and we help each other learn and prepare. We keep the politics out and focus on prepping and survival. Beginners to experts are welcome. We all heard of the ant and the grasshopper story. Our website teaches you to be the ant.
Awesome. Always love to hear that. Now, to intro our special guest tonight, I've been reading his series. I believe I'm up to getting ready to start book 7 out of 10. I believe is where he's gonna go for. But if you've heard anything about I Miss America in yellow letters, then you know who I'm talking about. The author of 299 Days, the one and only Glenn Tate. Welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for having me. It's going to be fun. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, and if anybody out there knows anything about writing the type of books that you guys write for, you probably have one of the biggest impacts on readers out there when it comes to taking our country back and getting the message out there. I love the whole I Miss America thing and just saying, you know, I miss the way I used to be, because I think all of us can agree this country is going down a shithole and fast.
Exactly. It's a simple phrase, and it captures it all, and it's kind of a trick on the eye about the, Miss America sort of beauty pageant. People think it's related to that, and it says it all. It's really, really taken off. There's shirts and stickers, and a couple people have spray painted walls with it and stuff, and not that I condone breaking a law or anything like that, but it's gratifying to see, because it speaks to a lot of people.
Yeah, a lot of people love this country and love what it stands for and, how it became what it is. But a lot of us have a lot of huge concerns about where it's going.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being here. I know that you have a very tight schedule, a very busy life, so greatly appreciate the fact that you took some time out to be here with us tonight.
No, my pleasure. I'm excited to find out more about this game and how this works, and it sounds like a lot of fun. So, I appreciate you saying nice things, but thank you guys for having me on. That's going to be great.
It's our pleasure. Well, let's get started on the first question, the first card. So I'm going to throw the first one out here, and I want you guys to let me know what you think, because hopefully this one's taped, so we'll get it out there, but if your loved ones are listening, they really might want to pay attention to this one. This one comes from the second deck, and there's no one attached to it. So here it goes. A gang ransacks your place, and their leader wants to take one immediate family member with them in order to avoid retaliation from you. They overpowered you and currently have you and your family members all bound and defenseless. They leave it up to you to make a decision on who they'll take. Once they are gone, there are no guarantees you'll ever see your family member again. Who would you send with them and why? JD, what do you think? Who would you send?
Wow, that would be a very tough...
Your wife's not listening, is she?
No. That would be such a tough thing, especially my immediate family, because if I go, who's going to take care of everybody else? And if I send, I couldn't bear sending any of them. I think I would probably go, because I think if there's anybody who has a chance of escaping anything, that would be me. So I would probably volunteer to go. I would not put my kids or my wife in this situation. I think there would be less risk leaving them behind on their own than going with this type of people. So that's what I would do.
You would leave?
But this is something that was commonly done back in the day. With kings and way back when. This is something very common.
Alika, what do you think?
Depending on family-wise, I think I would talk to the older kids, you know, the 13, 14, all the way up to 17, and, you know, make a contingency plan. Look, if you get taken, you would be offered up, but we would have scouts following you, and we'd hatch a rescue plan within days, but no more than, you know, 2 weeks to get you back, and just go through, have the scout report back, and then we make a well thought out plan and go in and go guerrilla style and try and silently take them all out and get one of our own back.
You'd send your kids in, huh? It's better than being grounded, I guess.
Well, you know, I think the common answer would be what JD said, and, you know, send the husband or send the man or the head of the household. But what if usually the head of the household knows, and he's the caretaker. He has no skill and stuff. So I think to get rid of that person would be detrimental to the rest of the family, and I think you would be better. I don't think I would be better off sending one of the teenagers that would understand, can take care of themselves, and not, you know, cry like a little baby, and with the knowing in the back of their mind, okay, my family's coming to get me sooner than later.
Okay, curveball. What if these teenagers are all female? Does that make a difference? There's a very good chance.
Are they good looking or are they ugly?
Well, I mean, if the group that's taking them seems like, you know, they're doing it as they're taking one, they want to take one of our own as more strategic than anything, and where I've got somewhat of a good feeling that they're just using them as a pawn and not as a sex toy, or that's not their intent. I might still go with the original plan, but I would definitely rethink that. But, you know, if they're like scuzzy dudes in leather jackets, and, you know, they're grabbing their balls while they're looking at one of my daughters, I'll probably volunteer myself to go up then.
See, I would send my husband. I would, without even thinking about it. I'd send Eddie in.
Well, you guys are equally well versed in, you know, all. You probably know more than he does, but I would assume that if one of you were gone, you know, your homestead would still be.
Yeah, even if both of us left, our kids would be fine. So, but Glenn, what do you think? Who would you send out?
Oh, myself. And my first impulse was, I got a neighbor I don't like anymore. Maybe I can fake, you know, the gang and maybe like, this is my neighbor. No, but that probably wouldn't work. So that's not within the bounds of the thing you get.
I don't know. Do you look alike?
The team in real life, and of course in the books, would be taking care of my family. That's prearranged, and so me being gone wouldn't be the end of the world. This assumes the team's around, and I have to assume they are. The other thing is, I would go and you know, try to kill as many of them as I could. Probably end up dying myself. That's kind of my job. I don't get religious on stuff, but that is my job in my worldview. In Corinthians, my job to lay down my life. That's how it goes. To the extent I could, I would want to go back to the bad guy's place and see what I could do to try to get my team to come, and I'd probably get killed in a crossfire, but, you know, we've talked about it in advance, if not this specific scenario, but if me getting killed is what it takes to kill a bunch of bad guys who did something bad like this, that's just part of the deal. I mean, I plan on living through this collapse that's coming, but I really don't 100% expect to. You know what I mean? It's not out of the question for me to get killed. The things that are out of the question are unnecessary harm coming to my family. You mentioned the female thing. absolutely no way anybody gets the females in my family. My son is the real Cole in the book. He's mildly autistic. People would be mean to him, and that wouldn't be happening either. So it's me, and I'm probably dead, but it's the best thing to do in a series of really bad choices that I would have to make.
So give some ideas of what people can do now, in your opinion, that to prepare for something like that. You know, that's what we talk about a lot is, you know, prepper chicks, we prepare. What do you think families can do in case one of their members ends up leaving for some reason or dying?
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone in the remaining family, in this case my wife and 2 kids, should know how to take care of themselves. My daughter is a gunfighter. You know from the books, my wife not so much, but she would have to learn fast. So they would need to basically take care of themselves. It would be nice, I don't know if this is feasible, but it would be nice if there was a way for me to communicate with my family and or my team so they knew where I was and could either come get me or blow the place up. I don't know, that's probably, you know, too easy. You know, like, oh, radios, well, you know, that's probably not going to happen. I think a big thing would be mental preparation. Like this game would be a perfect way to do it, by the way. And that is having this conversation. My remaining family isn't, you know, paralyzed with fear and grief and everything. And I mean, I want them, you know, to not be happy that I'm gone. I hope they don't throw a party or something. I mean, they should be able to carry on and say, listen, we knew when this collapse happened that there would be a variety of really nasty, yucky, terrible things that we'd have to confront. This is one of them, and, you know, now I'm speaking as them. Dad would want us to go on like this, and he's probably doing this week. Dad will be the new leader of the gang and will kill the other guy, and, you know, I mean, maybe he actually comes out of this okay, which wouldn't really happen, but I want them to believe. I want them to have hope. And I think it's a good conversation with your spouse or girlfriend or boyfriend or whatever it may be, significant other, I guess. If I'm missing or killed, you be sure, if you want to, whatever you want to, find somebody else. Life goes on. You got to have those conversations. So those are some things I would do that largely focus on mental preparation and not really as much practical preparation, because there aren't many practical things you can do except everybody in the family knows how to handle firearms and all that.
Yeah, I saw that you were just taking a class. Was that you with Masad?
Yeah, Masad Ayub Group. It was fantastic.
He's going to be here in Indianapolis here in next weekend, teaching. I'm going to miss it because Patriot Nurse is here during a medical class that I've already signed up for and committed to, but would love to take a class through him.
Oh, yeah, it's not to digress, but if you get a chance to take the legal portion, the Armed Citizens legal portion, it's not like law school. It's actually, like, entertaining and cool and informative. I can't believe I carried a gun without knowing some of these things, and I'm a lawyer, for goodness sake. So I highly, highly recommend it. You have a lot of peace of mind. Anyway, so digression is turned off now.
All right, so let's go on to the next question, because I've fully admitted I'd sell my husband down the river on that one. So I love him to death, but, you know, it is what it is.
Give up their children.
Yeah. Anybody else have a card they want to play next?
Let's see here. That's from the first one. And it goes like this. 2 women from outside a group trying to steal your supplies. They told you they were mothers with children and they needed the food. Your supplies will run out in a matter of days, and you have nothing you could spare without harming your own group. A supply run would almost certainly cost lives. If you set the women free, you risk them trying again and maybe using deadly force. If you keep them prisoners, their children will most likely die. How would you handle the situation, and why?
Okay, so say that again. They're out. You captured some women that were looking for food for their kids?
Yeah, so you caught two mothers trying to break into your camp looking for food. And you really have nothing you could spare. And going after food will probably cost lives. But if you set the women free, you risk them trying again. And maybe using deadly force next time. But if you keep them prisoners, their children will probably die. How would you handle if you were in a situation?
All right. Alika, what do you think?
Are they just single mothers with their kids? Or the card doesn't really specify, huh?
They don't bring the kids to the camp, it sounds like. You just capture the women.
Yeah, I know, but did they tuck the kids away, a couple miles past you?
Because I think if they had men, the men would probably take this on. But they had kids in a safe place and came to try their luck.
No.
I mean, I would have to assess the whole situation, and if it was just the mother and the two mothers and the kids, and they're trying to get food for their kids, and they're relying on each other to survive, to help their kids survive. If I was down on the manpower for my camp or homestead, I might consider letting them in. But if that was the case, I'd probably just kick them loose and let them on their merry way, and hope they don't come back guns blazing. But just if I did kick them loose, I would just have to up my security forces for put them on higher alert for a week or two to see if there's any unusual activity.
Okay. Alrighty. Glenn, what do you think?
My first reaction was I turn them away. I think the odds of them coming back with weapons or with other people are relatively low because, as you guys are mentioning, if they had those capabilities, they probably would have started off with that. So I'm not as worried about them coming back. Of course, if they come back armed or they come back with other people, then you got to kill them. I mean, you don't hear that many people say that sentence very often, but
we kill and eat people on this show.
Okay, good. Okay, that's awesome. I gotta go now. See you guys later. No, just kidding. But I think that one question I have, and I'm not trying to question the hypothesis, but it seems here's a thought that came up. If food is that scarce, I mean, if giving them a little bit of food jeopardizes people I'm taking care of, it sounds like there's only a couple days worth of food, and that started getting me to think, well, if there's only a little bit of food, we're all probably done for anyway. Maybe that would be a reason to try to help them out. I know that's kind of like, let's all let's all die together. That's not really where I'm going with this, but it occurred to me, the other thing that occurred to me, I think this would be hard to pull off, would be, we could take care of their kids, and this wouldn't work with your scenario where there's limited food, but I thought about if people come to my real cabin world that says, by the way, they wouldn't have got even close to where I am, especially if my team's out there, but that's a different story. But I thought of like a day camp thing where people come up and they want food. I thought, because again, I have to account for my life at the end of my life, at least like having a little day camp where their kids could come by and we feed their kids. I'm not interested in helping out. If I can't help people, then here's the consideration, and that is, if you're an adult grasshopper, you had an opportunity to prepare and you didn't. I mean, adults have the ability to do that. Kids are completely innocent. No kid sits there and says, I really think I need to start, canning food, and a parent says, you're only 8 years old, I'm not going to let you do it. That just doesn't happen. So kids are innocent, and if food can be spared for the kids, I'm all for it. But I really have no bond with the adults. Now, if I have enough food for everybody, then I have enough food for everybody, but that's probably not going to happen. So that's not really what you were getting at, but it gave me a chance to mention this whole kind of like take care of the kids in a day camp thing. The parents come back at the end of the day, where maybe you give kids a lunch and the parents drop the kids off. The kids get one meal a day, and then like an hour later, the kids go back. You know, this isn't Michael Jackson to Never Neverland. We're not trying to like, you know, keep kids or anything like that. So that's one thing I thought of.
JD, would you add anything different?
It would be a very tough situation, because if the women got, you know, if they got that close, that means I'm not very well equipped or staffed to deal with them, because like Glenn said, if you were prepared at a different level, you wouldn't even be in the situation. So that said, turning them loose, there would be a big risk, especially if they know you have some food.
Well, my question is, as a mother, who in their right mind would leave their kids behind to begin with? Because according to the question, it was just the women and not the kids. So where are the kids? Who are the kids with? If I were going to infiltrate a camp, I would send women, because women are going to get in a lot better than men would. If a guy shows up at a camp, they're probably going to get shot, you know, on the spot. If a woman shows up begging for food, how many of you are going to let her in?
It depends on how much I have, but if I have enough, and it, you know, I'm going to try to help everybody I possibly can. Of course, people are going to have to work for their food, and I'm not, you know, implying like sexual stuff, because that's not my style. That's not going to happen. In fact, I would try to the extent possible, protect women from having to do that kind of stuff, because that's probably going to be pretty common. So, but it all depends on how much stuff I have. But I am prepared mentally to turn adults away, and conceivably kids. That would be very, very hard to do. But this gets back to the mental preparation I mentioned in the first scenario. You have to be mentally prepared to do this.
Yeah, I'm still smelling a setup, though. You know, I'm still wondering where the kids are at. I'd probably keep them, and either A, find out where their kids are kept and bring them if I had to, but I would probably not turn the women away. Somebody has their kids if they're not with them, and there's a reason for that.
Well, maybe it's just another child, you know?
I don't know. No mother that I know of would leave their kids behind in the woods somewhere. I don't know. I smell a rat on that one. I would have to question that one. And if I were responsible to go into another camp to try and get in there and find out what they had, I would probably send a woman. There's a greater chance of them being able to get past that front gate than if a guy were to approach it. That's just,
I agree wholeheartedly with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, very true.
So, okay, nice question. A lot of food for thought there. JD, you have a question?
Well, I just read the last one. Alika, do you have one?
I'm sorry.
Give me 1 second. I just had it.
While he's getting a card, Glenn, I have a question for you. And we had this question the other night. Say there is a total downgrade situation, and you were responsible for rebuilding the government. And you could, and of course, I think most of us agree, probably the East Coast, you know, if we were attacked, would be obliterated. But if you had to choose somewhere in the country to form a new capital, where would you choose?
Wow, a new capital. This is a great question.
You could choose anywhere in the United States right now. Where would you choose to move it to?
Yeah, probably the Gulf Coast of Texas. Texas is awesome for the most part. I love, being a Seattle guy. I love the seaport, the sea lanes. I recognize the importance of that. I keep doing this, and I hope I'm not annoying you, but I'm kind of questioning the hypothetical. I don't see one country anymore after this, so there would be 7 or 8 capitals. But if there had to be one capital for the landmass currently constituting the United States, I think the Texas Gulf Coast is probably where I'd go.
Interesting. You don't think if we were attacked that anybody coming up from the Gulf or through Mexico, you think we'd still be able to hold on to that?
There'd be some pitched battles and everything, but I have a lot of faith in Texas, and I think there would be a bunch of American forces that would gravitate down towards that border. I think people coming up from Mexico, for example, the deserts would be inhospitable. So the main, I think, way to come in and at least have supply lines that could be sustained would be to, come up the Texas part, and that's where I think the Texans and Oklahomans and a bunch of others would probably meet them head on. So yeah, it would be a battlefront, but foreign enemies coming up through Mexico are going to have absurdly just terrible supply lines. That's why Red Dawn, as entertaining as it was, the Russians, or in the latest movie, the North Koreans, which is kind of silly, would have supply lines they couldn't possibly maintain. So it would probably be Mexicans coming up, into the United States, and I think that Texas civilians are probably better trained than the Mexican armed forces and probably better equipped. I'm being serious about this. I'm very serious. And so that's why I would do it. I guess you don't want a capital near a battlefront. You would have to have a seaport. If the East Coast is nuked, I'm kind of rethinking this. Maybe like Mobile, Alabama, or New Orleans or something like that. California is going to nuke itself. I mean, even if it's not, attacked, it's going to be a basket case. And Washington State is too far, to the northwest. And I live around a bunch of communists, so, this probably wouldn't be a very good place for it. So, I'm going to say New Orleans, Mobile, and maybe, the Texas Gulf Coast.
Awesome. Good thought process there. I like that. All right, Erika, are you ready?
Yeah, I got one.
Lay it on us.
Describe how you would approach other survival groups after the collapse.
That's good. Because how are you going to establish trade and get those lines of communications going without being branded a spy or getting shot?
What would you do, JD?
It'd be very, very tough. You'd have to take a great risk just approaching a camp with your weapon holstered, hands in the air, just maybe one person. But then what happens to you is anybody's guess. If you want to say, hey, I got another camp up the road and we want to trade some stuff, first of all, do you want to tell them that information? Do you want to open yourself, putting yourself in that risk? So I would not directly go to other groups. I would go to trade posts and see who's trading, and then reach out to those people who I know have the trader mentality. The people who produce something, they take it there and they want to barter for other stuff. I think not doing that is just too risky going any other way.
How long after a downgrade situation do you think it would take for people to set up an area of barter?
Well, I think there's a flea market a couple minutes away from my house, and people go there on Saturdays, but it's mostly junk, So I think people kind of have that mentality, but what are they going to have to trade? Very few of the people here are actually producers of goods. So it'd be very tough to see people with a big surplus to go there to trade right away. I'd say it would probably take a few months. The bad apples need to weed themselves out first to make it safe enough for people to go there and trade their surplus.
Do you think the flea markets that are established now, because I know there's plenty around the country, Do you think those will become the hubs as opposed to somewhere else, or do you think there's going to be a natural migration to a certain localized spot?
It's very hard to tell, because if you go to a flea market, you find all kinds of stuff, and the stuff that's there, very little of it is actually grown by somebody and handmade to be sold there. It's basically junk.
Well, think more along the line of like a farmer's market then.
Yeah, maybe something like that. I can see that. Becoming a trade post, a farmer's market.
Okay. Glenn, what do you think?
Boy, I agree that it's a bad idea just to show up to complete strangers and imply that you have stuff. And so I agree with all that. I can see trading posts sprouting up. I don't know how long it would take. I think it would take a while, as you guys were talking about, a matter of months or something, because of two things. One, people are going to use up all their own stuff first. And second of all, this is kind of scary and gross, but I mean, a lot of people are going to die. There's going to be a big die-off, and so that'll take a while to work its way out, but I think there will be trading posts. One of the models I would look at is Argentina when they had their collapse in 2000. In Sturfall, everybody knows about him. He's got all kinds of great, he was there, and he describes in his books and YouTube channel, I think it's YouTube channel, what happened, and he describes the markets in the gangs would run them, and you were incredible. It was the safest place in Argentina was to be inside of one of these. I think he called it an outdoor mall or something like that, because the gangsters made sure nobody was armed, and if anybody acted up, the gangs would kill them. But see, the gangs, since they got a cut of what was transacted, they had an incentive to make sure that it was safe.
Right.
And so there's going to be that incentive to keep it safe, but that's a little different than what you were talking about, which is going up to somebody. I also think there might be some traveling peddlers, kind of like out in the Old West and everything, and they might go around and they used to keep track of what communities needed what, and they would sort of be the go-betweens, and that's just one person, and they're going to basically travel around with information. I don't think they'll travel around with all the stuff because they'll be robbed, but maybe you'll have that. The other thing is, again, I'm expanding your scenario. I keep doing that, but if there's a community like Pierce Point in my book series, there would be a little teeny government, not an actual government, but one that doesn't suck, which would be, people doing things voluntarily. And one of the things that the leadership at Pierce Point did, they actually didn't do it. Now I think about it, it sprang up organically, and that was a little bulletin board, a little cardboard at the community meeting hall, and people would put on little index cards what they needed and what they wanted to trade, and that became pretty effective. Now, that's in a community where there's law and order and people kind of know each other, so you could feel a little bit more comfortable putting on an index card that you have, batteries or something like that, which would not be true in the scenario you gave. So I think those are some ways it would spring up.
What about, and you bring up the note cards, what about if you could get like a local paper up and established that could be delivered that has all that information in there?
Yeah, exactly. The Pierce Point Patriot, and there would be commerce, and there would be advertising, and it wouldn't, be on the internet. It would just be photocopied and all of that. You could do it on a word processor, classified ads like that, hard copy. I see that happening too, assuming there's electricity and some copy machines and some toner and that kind of stuff. And it wouldn't be delivered to every house. It'd probably be passed around, and people would make little notes and all of that. Again, kind of the Wild West scenario, because that's what they used to do that way. So I see that happening too.
Awesome. Nice information. Alika, what do you think? How would you approach another group?
Well, I think I would do what JD mentioned as far as not so much a trading post, but if you happen to bump across somebody while you're foraging for food and, you find out through small talk that, there's a camp nearby, be like, hey, I'm miles away from my camp, you're miles away can come up with some kind of collaboration and go from there. And even on the first meeting, I think I'd bring a peace offering of, some kind of food or, vice like alcohol or cigarettes to say, hey, we mean you no harm. We looking, to trade or whatever. We'll meet here. And, if we need backup or whatever, we can rely on you, you can rely on us, that kind of stuff.
Okay. How dangerous do you think it's going to be to attend one of these things? I know we've talked about it in the past. If you end up going to something like that and everybody knows that you have supplies and they single you out there, how much is the gray man going to play into how you should conduct yourself there?
Well, you definitely want to play your whole hand, and I said it before. Even if I had it and they needed it, I can say, I know we can't afford, 4 or 5 miles in the other direction. I have good contacts with that could get you that stuff. Give me it 2 days or whatever. I would never tell them, I've got this, I've got that. I might say, I've got the small little, throwaway good, so to speak. But for something big like that, if they needed, soap or high valuable items, I would say I know a guy that knows a guy that could get you this stuff. I'll be
the guy that knows a guy.
Yeah.
So what do you think is going to be the hot commodity to trade besides food?
Ammunition.
Would you trade ammunition?
Probably
it'd be worth its weight in gold.
To people far, far away from me, sort of at almost a regional-wide, trading post kind of thing. I don't really plan on trading ammunition. I think I'll have people coming to me that I can turn into security folks, and instead of trading the ammunition, I'll basically be issuing it, really, and maybe it would be tough. I mean, I would have to obviously trust who it is that I was supplying ammunition to. It might be another, gate guards that is in the book for another community or something like that. That's a tough one. It would be one of those things where you would know it when you see it. You would know whether it's a good idea or not. And it often would not be a good idea. But I view my ammunition supplies as things that I can issue to people who are going to help provide security and, not go out and invade people and be marauders or anything. I'm talking purely defensive uses of this stuff.
Right. How long do you think after downgrid would it take us, and I know it's going to be, the variables are how we go down, but I think most of us agree that the power grid's going to collapse. Let's say it does collapse. How long do you think it would take us to get some kind of reloading of ammunition manufacturing back up and running?
Oh goodness, at least a year. I don't even think too much about remanufacturing ammunition. Now, if there's a region of the country that is somehow unscathed, which really I can't see happening, there might be a supply of it or something like that. I envision people living off of the ammunition that's currently here in this country, and I guess we start melting down stuff. Primers are kind of hard to make, powder's kind of hard to make. To answer your question, I don't know if there's ever any significant remanufacturing. I guess maybe in 5 or 10 years or something like that, as the rest of society is coming back online.
I know there was some talk, and I don't remember. I thought it was on Glenn Beck. There was a community out your way, out on the West Coast somewhere, up Oregon, Utah, Washington, somewhere up in there. I think it was called the Citadel, a walled-in community, and they, as part of their preps and whatnot after a downgrid, they employ themselves now by firearms and ammunition making technology. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, exactly. It's in Idaho, if that's what I'm thinking of, and it's sort of one of these prepper communities where everybody in the community agrees to provide for the common defense, and they do all that. Yeah, no, I have, now that you mentioned it, heard of it, and that, I guess, though, is an example of
uniqueness.
Stockpiles of ammunition. I mean, they may have stockpiles of powder, primer, projectiles, and casings, but it's still current, it's inventory that's here. I don't know that, I doubt that they have a facility that can make powder. I mean, they couldn't possibly get the EPA permits, to do that, so they couldn't be doing it now. People obviously will not worry about EPA permits in the future, but I think you need really big industrial facilities with tons of utilities to make this kind of stuff. I know somebody is listening out there and saying that if you rub, rocks and maple leaves together and you sprinkle some stuff on it, could be a low-grade powder or something like that. Maybe it could, but we're not talking about musket kind of stuff here. We're talking about regular ammunition, and I just don't think you can make it without full-on, industrial recovery that I think would take years.
Yeah. All right, let's go on to the next question. Anybody have one, or you mean just go ahead and play one? We good?
I got one.
Go ahead.
What is the one skill you wish you had in case the world went into post-apocalyptic mode tomorrow, and why?
Tomorrow. All right. Well, Glenn, what do you think? What do you want? What's the one skill you wish you had you don't?
Communications. Actually, bigger than that, I wish I had mechanical reasoning skills, which I don't have. If any of you have ever watched me try to fix anything around my house, you would laugh hysterically. I'm incredibly bad at that. Of course, if I was like a macho tough guy, I would be telling everybody how awesome I am at it, but I'm horrible. But specifically communications, I would want to be able to MacGyver radios out of things. I don't pay enough attention to communications. I do pay some attention to it, and a couple of guys on my real team are communications wizards, and I rely on them. But the more I think long and hard about scenarios, the more I realize how important communications are. I don't just mean radios. There are other ways to communicate. But if I could be the person who magically and skillfully always made sure that communications were up among at least like even a small team or something like that, that would be fantastic, because you can see threats farther away. You can plan ambushes. You can have counterattacks. You can get people out of bad places. You can see if an opponent, has stuff and what their defenses are. Plus you get news from the outside world. That's really important, morale and hope and all of that. So communications is a skill that I would love to have more of if the world ended tomorrow.
Awesome. JD, what's the one skill you wish you had?
After this question coming up so many times, I still go back to the ability to communicate well with people, not through electronics, but just be very persuasive.
You want to be a manipulator.
Not a manipulator, but somebody who knows how to knows his way with the words. And
Rico Suave.
Plus apocalyptic car salesman.
Yeah.
Something like that.
They start calling you Rico. There's Rico's.
Because, look, I think if you can do something like that, you can barter with anybody. You can rally people to defend a point. You can have peace. I think that just brings a lot of benefits.
So charisma.
Yeah, it makes a charisma and the ability to have your way with words. But sometimes, in order to really get something done, you have to be willing to impose your will on other people, And I'm not that kind of guy who can basically run over others to get what I want. But if you think about it, politicians, that's exactly what they are. They manipulate the system. I don't need to preach to the choir here. You guys know all about what they do. But so if I could get what I want without being that kind of person, that would be awesome.
The current politicians that we have now in office, how well do you think they're going to stand up in a downgrade situation? Do you think we'll have to, most of them will be gone? Or do you think they'll be able to get what they need because of their character?
Well, I think they're going to get blamed for a lot of what's happening, depending on how things go down. And I still think they're going to see themselves as the leaders, you know. They're going to be still trying to manipulate the situation so that they're on top. And I see the collapse as an event to liberate people from this bondage, which is a corrupted rule of law. So it's going to be very interesting. I think a lot of politicians are going to get themselves killed. That's what I think.
Yeah, I would agree. I know there's a lot of people out there that are waiting just for a downgrade situation to clean up some of the things they think need cleaned up, unfortunately. Alika, what do you think? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Glenn.
Well, I just want to say, I think, and I work and live around lots and lots of political people, and I think that a lot of politicians will kind of go into hiding. They'll try to blend in, and they won't tell anybody, what their past life was. And then some other politicians will be, like Commissioner Winters in my book series, basically, behind the wire in a courthouse, kind of commanding, police forces and all of that. And so they won't be hiding out. They'll be operating their small armies, but they won't be out saying, "Hi, I'm your state representative. Remember me, and you should listen to what I have to say." A lot of politicians and agency people, bureaucrat people, they fear common citizens, and they don't need to, because nobody's out trying to kill them or anything like that. But they really have a bunker mentality. I was on a phone call this afternoon about this very topic, about the bunker mentality. And they're going to be very, very scared, and they're either going to go to actual bunkers like that courthouse with barbed wire that I mentioned, or they're just going to try to hide. They're not going to be active and continuing to do their bad stuff.
Interesting. Alika, what do you think? What's the one skill that you want to have?
I've said it before, and it's farming, growing food. I think if you know how and successfully do it, you can control pretty much the rest of the economy, because everybody's got to eat. And from there, you can get your bullets, your whatever else you might find valuable, and people will work for you. You got your security if you feed them. People will be hungry. If you can control that, I think you can control your sector, neighborhood, and possibly the whole city.
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah. And there's going to be people out there trying that, that's for sure. Well, there are now, so.
Yeah.
But
isn't that what the food stamp program is all about?
Controlling people? 100%.
Oh, yeah. It's making the people dependent on the government. Because then they'll keep the government growing. If people are free and they can take care of themselves, they don't need the government.
Well, that's why we have new taxes every year, right? I think if I had to choose one skill, it would be emergency medicine. Beyond the putting the Band-Aid on the boo-boo, more like, come here, give me your appendix kind of medicine.
That would be very useful, too.
No one said the skill they wish they had was getting the high score on Angry Birds. No one said that.
I've never played that. Yeah. Wow, that's a whole nother story right there. But we are where we're at, 50 minutes. We have about How much time do you have left, Glenn? Do you have time for another card?
Yeah, I have time for one more card. This is fun. This is a good time, you guys.
Well, you're welcome to come back anytime and play with us. It's even more fun when we're live and the chat room is ripping them up in there because they play along with us and critique our answers and give their own answers, and it's always a fun time.
Cool.
All right, here's your question. You were forced out of your survival retreat by an incoming hostile army. Now on the run, food and water are low. You and your survivalist friends can barely stave off hunger by foraging. One of your friends comes to you in need of advice. His spouse decided she'll sell her body for supplies at the trade post in order to feed the children. Your friend is between a rock and a hard place and needs your input. What would your advice be?
Who's it directed at?
Wow.
Oh, well, who's brave enough to go first on this one? Nobody.
Oh, I'll go ahead.
Go ahead, Glenn.
You say a friend says this. My first question was, before I heard you say a friend, who is this person? And I hate to be like self-centered, but how close is this person to me? Obviously, if it's wife or daughter or something, then it's a different answer, which is kind of challenging. But if it's a friend, I don't know. I mean, kind of her choice. It's kind of viable. The thing I would be concerned about is this going to work? Because they're going to be mean, nasty people, and my friend's probably going to get hurt, and that's a way bigger concern. I think there's going to be a lot of this going on. I don't know about endemic or something. I think there'll be quite a bit of it. There's a character in the book, Angie, who she's described, and since you're up to book 7, you've read about Angie, and that is, I think, how it goes. There'll just be usually women, I guess sometimes men, but usually women who will have boyfriends that'll take care of them and stuff like that, and it may not be as nasty and violent and horrible as it otherwise could be. I'm sure there will be lots of that bad, nasty, violent stuff, but it may be socially acceptable, basically. I think that in other parts of the world and at other times, when there have been collapses of various kinds, there has been just sort of arrangements that are made, and it's not always horrible and coercive. When it is horrible and coercive, people doing the forceful things need to be shot. Let's be clear about that. But if it's more sort of a new reality and a new kind of relationship, and if everyone consents, I don't have a big problem with it. And so it comes back to my friend and whether she has a big problem with it. That, to me, is my main concern.
What about the fact that she's going to sell her body, basically, and your kids, your children, will reap the benefits of that? They're going to eat because of it. Would you feel, what would your emotions be over that? Anything?
I would be thankful to her, to be honest. I would be thankful that she's willing to make that sacrifice for my kids. And I wouldn't say, oh, go ahead and do this. This is a great idea, so my kids can eat.
Right.
I would be thankful if it were her decision.
Alika, what do you think?
I don't know, Glenn. You can't tell them no. You definitely express your opinion, and if you didn't like it, you can tell her, hey, there's other ways we can feed this group. We'll find a way. You don't have to do this, but ultimately it's her decision, and if she ended up doing it, I'd be forever in her debt.
And your advice to her spouse would be what? How do you think? What advice would you be able to give him to be able to deal with the emotional part of, knowing that your spouse is going to go sell herself to feed you and your children? That's going to be hard, especially for a guy to swallow that. For the fact that you're not taking care of your family to begin with, so now my wife has to go out and sell herself in order to feed you. that's a big ego bruise right there.
Oh, is this my wife or a friend? I'm sorry, I may have got this entire scenario wrong. Because if it's my wife, it's a whole different story.
Well, how would you, so you would have a problem if it was your wife?
Yeah, absolutely. It would be. I would look at it, far differently, and that might be, I don't know, unprincipled or whatever. But I absolutely would look at it differently. I mean, if it were an absolute life or death situation, I'd be curious what her thoughts were. If she thought, and said, listen, this needs to be done. It would be analogous to the first scenario, which was the going away with the gang and stuff. If one of the grown-ups absolutely has to do something horrible for the rest of the family, then it's a sacrifice that needs to be made, and it's last resort and all that. But to me, it's analogous to that. It's that kind of sacrifice. This is why, there's a bit of a conflict of interest if a friend or your wife is considering doing this and it's going to benefit your kids. You can't cheerlead too much because it's going to benefit your kids. But, the wife, it's not like a macho, like, my wife, that's my woman. No one can have my wife. It's not that kind of thing. It's that I don't... I obviously am more connected to my wife than just like a random female friend of mine. And so I care more about my wife than a random female friend. I just do.
Yeah, I mean, it would be hard. What if it was your sister? I mean, she's more than just a female friend, but she's not your wife. Well, hopefully, anyways.
Are we in Appalachia?
What if somebody would post either to Prepper Chicks on our Facebook page, on the 299 Days page, or on Survival Logic, if they have a I Miss America hat or t-shirt and they're playing Conflicted, they take a picture of themselves and send it to one of us. Maybe we could put a prize package together for them.
I'd love to.
So the first person that can send in a picture of them in a I Miss America shirt or hat from Glenn's site, and they're playing Conflicted from JD's site, send it to either Prepper Chicks, Survival Logics, or Glenn. We'll put together a prize package and send it out.